Hi, I'm Elizabeth and I'm here to talk about books. So lately, and by lately I mean the last month and a half, almost 2 months even, all my videos have either been sagalong videos or tag videos. And that's fine, but during this time I've also been reading a lot of other books, so today I thought I was going to talk about some of them, which makes this video a sort of recent reads video, I guess. So one thing I've been doing a lot of lately is rereading, of course, of Sagalong. 3 out of 4 texts were rereads for me, but I've also reread a lot of other things. I reread 3 Joe Abercrombie novels, Best Served Cold, Heroes and Red Country, which are book 4, 5 and 6 in the First Law universe. So now all I have left to reread is the short story collection called Sharp Ends, and then I will have reread the entire series and we'll be all caught up before the new novel in the series is coming out, I think in September, which means I did my reread way too early, but I thought it would take me longer. I thought I was going to pace myself throughout the year, but apparently when it comes to series I am forever a binge reader, so I couldn't stop when I first had started, and I guess I will be reading Sharp Ends within the next few weeks or so. I also reread something else. I reread Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, which is a YA graphic novel. I know it's a graphic novel, but I think it's YA, which is about Nimona, who's a young girl who shows up at the door of the local supervillain's house demanding to become his sidekick. So I think this is cute. I think this is laugh out loud funny at times, but I also think it has a sort of more profound message about what it means to be a hero or a villain, and that maybe sometimes it's okay to be a villain depending on who counts as the good guys. So I enjoyed rereading this, and I also reread one of my favorite books from childhood this month, and that was BFG by Roald Dahl. I haven't read that since I was, I don't know, 8 or something, and I was surprised at how little I remembered of the actual story of the novel. I basically just remembered one scene where Sophie, I think she's called, the young girl, is discussing with the BFG what is more impolite, burping or farting. Apparently that's the only thing 8-year-old me felt the need to remember from the novel. Even though I read it multiple times, I remember that was one of the books I kept taking out of the library over and over again. And I quite enjoyed reacquainting myself with the actual plot of the novel. But it hasn't been all rereading. I have also read some other stuff that was new to me. One of them, and the last book I finished yesterday, was Binti the Night Masquerade by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a 3rd book in a sci-fi trilogy, and I have been looking for this forever because I've read the first 2 and really liked them. And then this 3rd one proved impossible to find in all the bookshops I went to, because they had maybe the first one, some had both the first and the second, and several bookshops had a bind-up with all 3, but I didn't want the bind-up, I wanted this edition to go with my previous 2. So I've been looking and I finally found it, and I read it, and I think it was just as good as the other 2. I really like this series. It's about a young girl from the Himba tribe in Africa who is accepted at a university on a different planet. She becomes the first of her people to leave that community and to leave planet Earth at all. So the first book is about her going away, and the second book is about her coming back home, and this continues on from there. And I think this is a very inventive story, and I think it's dramatic and it's pretty gruesome at times, but it's also very hopeful, and it got this thing I like in sci-fi where I just can barely keep along with the novel and the ideas and concepts. So if that sounds interesting to you, you might want to check out the Binti trilogy if you haven't already. I've also read some more sci-fi while I've been doing other things, and I've read Rosewater by Tate Thompson, which is another sci-fi novel set in Africa. This is set in Nigeria, and there's an alien presence. It's in the near future. The present day of the novel is in 2066, and so there's an alien presence that's hidden under this impenetrable dome, and around this dome a donut-shaped city has arisen, and that city is Rosewater. And we follow a man called Caro who lives there, and he is some sort of psychic. He can read people's minds, and through that he can find things, and that's what he does. But he also has two other jobs relating to his abilities, and we get to know Rosewater, and we get to know him, and we get to know more about the aliens and the alien presence on Earth through Caro, and we follow him both in the present day and in flashbacks to his older days, and together these different timelines give us a picture of what has happened and how this alien came to be in Nigeria, and what implications this has for humanity. So I did really like this book. There were times where I was a bit confused about how the pieces of the puzzle fit together, but by the end of the novel I felt everything was a lot clearer, and this is a series I will be continuing on. I think the next book either just has come out or will come out within the next few days, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna get straight onto it. I'm probably gonna wait a little bit, just because I recently bought a lot of books, and I'm trying to not buy any more until I've actually read a big chunk of the pile that sits on my dining room table. But anyways, I am going to continue on this series, and I felt it had some interesting ideas as well. So another book I read in February was my favorite book of the year so far, and that's Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. James Baldwin is a writer I first heard about through BookTube years and years ago when I started watching BookTube, and I bought this book pretty early on, so it's been sitting on my shelves for a while because I've been scared to pick it up. And that's something that happens from time to time when you hear a book praised by just about everyone. The expectations of loving the book become so high that I'm sort of scared of actually picking it up because I'm scared of being disappointed. But I finally read Giovanni's Room, and I was not disappointed. I thought this was a beautifully written novel. It's heartbreaking, and it left a big impact on me. So this book starts off with a young man being in a cabin in the south of France, and he's drinking, and he's saying it's because a friend of his is going to die the next day. And it takes a while before we get to know why and how, but after that we go back in time and we meet the same man in Paris, and we see how he develops a relationship to another man, and we see how they come to mean a lot to each other over a few intense days, and then we see how they split apart, and eventually we get back to the present day point of the novel with the man in the south of France waiting for his friend to die. And it's, as I said, it's a heartbreaking book, and for sometimes I think having this opening of a book where you are told that someone is going to die, and then you go back in time and you see everything leading up to that point, sometimes I feel that is sort of a cheesy ploy to make otherwise mundane things seem more interesting than they would if you didn't have that opening. I see that a lot. If there's a murder on page 1, I mean, even someone brushing their teeth gets this ominous feel to it, just because you know that it might be the last time they perform that action. But that wasn't the case with this novel for me, because even though I was told in the beginning that a person was going to die, at that point I did not know who that person was and the meaning that person had for the young man telling the story. And also I was told he was going to die. I was not told definitely that he had died, which left this opening that there might be a misunderstanding, that there might be a reason or something happening that would lead him to not die. And also, just because to begin with I didn't know who he was, but then when we got back in time I sort of forgot the opening, or maybe I was just in denial and didn't want to remember it. But I got to know these people, I got to care about these people, and so when we got back to the place where the story began, it was just doubly heartbreaking to realize that this was how it was gonna end. And yeah, as I said to begin with, I also thought it was a beautifully written novel, and I will definitely be reading more James Baldwin, probably even this year. And I'm not going to be scared of picking up his books anymore, because I don't think he's capable of disappointing me. But maybe that's dangerous to say after having read only one novel. Another book I've really loved over the past month was The Cost of Living by Deborah Levy. I read her memoir Things I Don't Want to Know last year, and this is the sequel to that, sort of. I kind of wanted to read this straight after reading the other one last year, but I wanted the paperback edition to match the other one, so I waited for the paperback to come out. And I bought this when I was in London a few weeks ago, and I also read it in London, and as I said, I absolutely adored it. So in this book we meet Levy at a later stage in her life than in the previous one, where she's just splitting up with her husband and moving with her two daughters to a flat in North London. Actually, one of her daughters is going off to school, so only one of them is living there with her. But we hear about how this affects her life, how she settles in to her new life and her new routines, how she's struggling to find a new writing routine and even a place to write. We just hear about a lot of not random, but a lot of encounters with other people, and about her trying to find her place in the world now that the label of wife is no longer belonging to her. Who is she now? Who is it possible to be as a woman in the world? And this was a book that just resonated so deeply with me, and it's hard to just put my finger on why. It wasn't necessarily that I related to her specific circumstances, but it was just something in her writing and in her musings that just sparked so many thoughts in my head that it felt like fireworks going off in my brain while reading this. And not necessarily even things closely related to what she was experiencing. It was just a book that made me very introspective and looking into myself. And even though I'm not like a big annotator of books, I ended up writing like dissertations in this one, just because I had so many thoughts. I needed to write them down, and this book was what was handy. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. This was just a brilliant reading experience for me, and I just might think that Deborah Levy is going up there as one of my favorite writers. In fact, this book made me realize I needed to read some of her fiction as well. And I mean, I was in London, so there were bookshops everywhere, and I picked up Hot Milk, which was the novel of hers that I had heard the most about, just because it was on the long list to the Man Booker in 2016. So I went for this, and in this book we meet a mother and daughter who are in Spain, where the mother is supposed to be getting treatment for a mysterious illness that makes her most days paralyzed, but some days she's able to walk. And these two has a very strained relationship, very codependent, and the father of the young girl who went away when she was little, so she's also struggling with abandonment issues from that. and we follow these two in Spain as they have to sort of reevaluate their relationship during this treatment period. And I really like this as well. I probably didn't like it quite as much as her memoir books, but I could definitely recognize her style and her thematics also in this. It's very much also about being a woman in the world and sort of exploring the possibilities. What kind of person will you be allowed to be if you're a woman in the world? And I liked it. I felt sometimes it felt almost just a little bit surreal, just slightly tilted, a bit off. It's not veering into magical realism or anything like that. Everything happening in this book is physically possible. It was just some things happening, and just maybe the personality of the doctor that treated the mother, that was just a bit weird, and just felt like an augmented version of reality, maybe. I'm not sure how to describe it, but I like the exploration of this awkward relationship between mother and daughter. I'm not quite sure if I like the ending, though. It felt a bit quick, maybe. I'm not sure. It made sense. I just felt it wasn't really built up to. It came a bit surprising to me. But anyways, I did really like this book, and I will be picking up more Deborah Levy as well. So I think I'm just gonna leave it there. I have read more books than this, but maybe some of them will show up in later videos. I think this is long enough, and I just want to edit it and upload it so I can get a video up. I'm a bit behind on everything. I missed my upload last weekend because I was busy and a bit overwhelmed with work at the moment, but I have a lot of tags videos that I want to do, and I also have a lot of other videos I want to do. So hopefully I'll be able to stick to that, and you will see me in a new video in not too long. Until then, bye bye.